So due to the COVID pandemic, we're still allowed until April 1st to meet remotely. So the Board of Health meeting tonight will be held remotely as the agenda stated, and how to log into the meeting tonight. Right now I have Chairman Fisk, Vice Chairman Greenberg, Board Member Fitchner, I'm sorry, Tom, I'm sorry. Select Board members, Lonnie Tinio and Mike Maroli, and I believe Andrew from the library. That's all I have right now present in the meeting. Oh, Ellen, the town clerk, is also on also. As we know, the Board of Health allows public comment. Please speak clearly so I can get good records for the minutes. With that, I will turn it over to Chairman Fisk, and the first thing on your agenda tonight is to discuss COVID-19. Andy?
I think we're all aware of how serious the latest numbers for the virus are. They're just getting worse and worse every day at a rapid speed, and it's much greater numbers than a year ago in the beginning of the pandemic. We have an email from Ian Labonte from the VNA that we use. Would you please read what Ian is said to us, please, Missy?
Yep. So Ann had called me at the beginning of the week. They have a lot of positive cases in Mendon, a lot more than what they had in the past. From January 1st until now, we have 35 active cases and 1 probable case. In talking to her, and I asked her to send an email. Her recommendation to the board is to close town buildings to the public for the next 2 weeks. Let the surge pass, see where we are, and then reassess then. In the meantime, also everybody wearing masks while they're in the building. So anyone that does come in by appointment, or if this is the way the board decides to go, they would have to wear a mask, and that when the town hall or the town buildings reopen, that everybody would wear a mask while they're in the building. That's her recommendation. Yep.
Excuse me 1 second, just to clarify that one, and I think everybody probably understands it, but I don't want to take anything for granted, that when we say close the public buildings, that does not mean everybody go home, the buildings are closed. That's closed to the public.
Correct.
And the employees will still be working. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Correct. Yep. So talking with, and she said that the town of Mendon for the month of December had 156 confirmed cases, 12 probable. So that would be her recommendation. I asked her to put it in writing, so I would have her recommendation from you guys. And so now it's up for you guys to discuss. Andy?
So we went through this type of procedure last year, and to my knowledge, it seemed to work very well. Ellen is here. She can give us her thoughts on the matter, because she's right in the heart of it, being right there in the town hall. We know we have the walk-up window where the tax collector is, and as far as stickers and stuff, it can be done. It was done last year. Ellen, what are your thoughts on this, please?
Hi there, Andy. I personally, I'm not seeing as much traffic, so closing to the public would probably not be a big deal, except that it's tax time. But we do have very good use of the drop boxes right now. I don't want to see us closing for months and months like we did before, but a short-term closing while we're still in the office answering phones, and if somebody really needs to come in by appointment, I don't really see a big issue with that.
Thank you. Selectman Tinio, do you have any thoughts on this matter, please?
Yes, sorry. Thanks. Thank you, Andy. My thoughts are that we're not closing any businesses anywhere in Massachusetts. The only things that seem to be closing right now are municipal, or closing to the public, I guess, would be municipal buildings. Yes, we have a huge surge in cases. We also have an immense surge in testing. So of course, we're going to turn up way more cases, especially with this variant. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact that we're talking about doing this for just simply municipal buildings seems a little strange to me. But again, I'm all ears on what everybody has to say, because I'm definitely no expert in it. However, we're open everywhere with no masks. I'm just wondering why the municipal buildings would be any different.
All right, thank you. Mike Maroli, do you have any thoughts on this? Selectman Maroli, please. You're on mute, Mike.
It looks like he might have dropped off, to be honest.
Yeah, Mike left. I would,
Um,
Andy, I would just say, you have Andrew from the library, and one of your health agents, Dan, is also on too.
All right, thank you. Let's start with Andrew. First of all, before we go to Andrew, along the lines of what Lonnie has touched on, in each case, in each office, certainly if we have, like, our town clerk, she's in that one area, she's the one that's there all the time. And if it makes anybody in any section of either the town hall, the annex, the library, you can certainly say, in my area, you must wear a mask. It does not have to come from the Board of Health. It does not have to come from the governor. If you feel more comfortable, certainly you can, on your own, say, if you're going to come in the area where I am, have to work and have to stay, you must wear a mask. So that being said, let's go to Andrew, please.
So we actually put a mask mandate in place. I had an agreement with the select board, if we should get to that stage, that we could do so. So we put a mask mandate requirement in place yesterday. So we have that. We also have shut down in-person programming for the next 2 weeks. Shut down in-person programming for the next 2 weeks. And next week, end of next week, Tara and I will reassess. She's going to be doing virtual programs for the time being. So we're not having large groups of people in. I didn't feel like a library sanctioned event in which we bring people together was a good idea at this point. I'm a little reticent about closing the library. We can do curbside service. It's incredibly time intensive. We actually have to put the word out on something like that. I mean, it can be done, but we don't get, I wouldn't say we're getting a lot of foot traffic, to Ellen's point at this point. I don't know that we have people congregating necessarily in the library. My opinion, I personally would like us to be able to stay open. If we have to go to curbside, we have to go to curbside, but we're already doing the mask requirement. And as I said, we've halted in-person programming for the next 2 weeks, and we'll reassess at the end of next week whether or not we need to continue to postpone in-person and just go virtual.
Thank you. Tom Fickner, do you have thoughts on this?
Greetings all. Well, first of all, in general, I would not support any overall shutdown of any of the town buildings. I believe what's been spoken by Lonnie and Andrew and Ellen in terms of how they can mitigate the situations and steps they've already taken, I believe is the way to go. I do not believe that the Board of Health should step in and automatically declare that all the town buildings should be closed. I believe that depending on the function of the building, as Andrew has pointed out, what they do in the library, I believe they need to look, you need to look and assess how your operations are on a daily basis. As Ellen pointed out, there seems to be very little traffic and probably overall very little foot traffic that comes into the town hall. I know in the past, the steps they've taken to mitigate things such as implementing social distancing, face coverings when required, are all appropriate measures to take. You know, doing the appointments for individuals, things like that. But I would not support any wide-scale mandate by the Board of Health to shut down town buildings. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Alan Greenberg, please.
I'm in agreement with the previous speakers. I have I don't see at this time the need to close the public buildings to the public. However, I have no problem with the minor inconvenience of wearing a mask. I know over the last month, I personally have started to wear a mask a lot more than I had been in large settings, grocery stores, etc. And some of the businesses that I do business in have, you know, on their own, you know, are requiring masks, like AJ mentioned. So I have no problem with a mask guideline at this time. Like I said, a lot of the businesses that I've gone into, I know not in there frequently, but the Muffin House, there is one crew that seems to wear masks, and there's another crew that seems not to. So I have no problem with a mask guideline or suggestion at this point. But I don't want to see, I think it would be very discouraging to close town buildings to the public. Back to you, AJ.
Thank you, sir. Daniel, would you please chime in on this matter?
Of course. First of all, can you hear me all right? I have to use my phone, so I'm worried I'm not getting good audio.
Perfect, crystal clear, thank you.
Perfect, not a problem. So first thing, my name is Dan Markman. I'm one of the health agents that's hired on the Public Health Excellency Grant for the Blackstone Valley. As far as closures go, it sounds like the general consensus is that folks are a little nervous about closing a town hall because they wouldn't be able to kind of fulfill their responsibilities. I know that a few of the surrounding towns have implemented closures of their town hall, namely Upton and Northbridge, mainly as a protective measure for their employees. A few of their departments only have 1 or 2 members of staff, so having them forced to work from home or not be able to work at all for a week or two because of a COVID infection would effectively grind that department to a halt. So they've done that as a preventative measure to try to maintain their staff. But if you suspect that Mendon will be able to manage, then that's as it is. As for masks, I would suggest, based on the CDC's current recommendations and guidelines, to institute some sort of mask policy for the town as a whole. Now, at this moment of the surrounding communities, only Blackstone has done this, and they've done that only for town employees. But according to the CDC's current recommendations, anywhere that has high community transmission, which includes the entire state of Massachusetts right now, we have an alarming number of cases. They suggest wearing masks indoors, regardless of vaccination status, just to try to mitigate the spread a little bit. Because at this point, even Massachusetts, which has I believe, more hospitals per capita than any other state, is almost overwhelmed in its medical health system. So at least for the next month or so, that might be prudent, just so that we don't overwhelm our hospitals.
Can I, Andrew, Andy, may I ask a question? It's Lonnie.
Of course you may. Step right in. Your turn.
Sure. I'm just wondering where the data is that by wearing these masks, we're not going to get sick and not overwhelm the hospitals. By the masks are going to fix it like we tried this before and they didn't. So I'm just wondering what data we're using to make that assumption.
Sure. I can answer that if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Sure. So since the outbreak began, most data has supported that masks will provide at least some protection. It's not an airborne infection, which means if you can restrict the amount of droplets that somebody is spewing out, you can significantly decrease the likelihood of spread. Now, Omicron is a little bit more pervasive, so masks on their own are a little tricky, but it's still significantly better than no protection at all. And there is data to suggest that locations that have more strict mask mandates are seeing a reduction in cases. At the moment, Massachusetts doesn't have any sort of mask mandate that it is attempting to enforce, and it is seeing a large amount of cases. Now, I am not in a position to comment on why the state as a whole isn't instituting this guidance as they had in the past, but in this instance where we're seeing such a high outbreak, it would fall to the local Board of Health to try to stem the flow as much as they can. It's not as, I won't lie, it's not going to be as effective as a statewide mandate, but it'll still help reduce a little bit.
It will help reduce none. My recommendation will be that we do not force people to wear masks again. They don't work. Half the people don't wear them correctly. And unless you're wearing an N95 mask 100% correctly, they're not effective. Bandanas, these paper masks that we wear, they're not effective. The data shows this.
With respect, that's incorrect. Even an improperly worn, okay, sorry, let me rephrase that. Even the non-surgical masks have some protection. Most surgical masks, which are the most commonly worn, do provide protection. If they aren't being properly worn, sure. But for instance, we don't, just because a seatbelt isn't properly worn, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have rules to tell people that they need to wear seatbelts. The fact of the matter is, regardless of the effectiveness of the implementation on the individual level, masks are effective. Data does suggest that they are effective. Omicron makes that a little trickier, but data is still out there. It's been out there for 3 years.
So the data, but you keep using the word suggest, and you keep using the word Omicron is trickier. This Omicron is trickier. Look,
Correct.
By putting a mask mandate on in Mendon is not going to help anything. Anything, not even a little. It barely helped when the whole country was wearing masks. The numbers were through the roof.
That's a very concrete statement, very absolute. I don't believe it to be true, but again, it's very difficult to disprove an absolute like this. Again, the data does suggest masks are effective. The data suggests that locations that impose mask mandates see fewer or at least less community spread. That's all I can really say. Therefore, any community that imposes a mask mandate will see less community spread.
Are you all done, Lonnie? You all set, Lonnie?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Andy,
Yes.
I think I just want to make sure I understand things correctly. If the Board of Health were to vote a mask mandate or requirement, whatever you want to call it, this would be just for town buildings. You're not talking about requiring all businesses open to the public, blah, 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 requiring them to wear, the people entering their businesses have to wear a mask, right?
Correct.
Okay, because I know some towns have implemented those things, and with my conversations with you and Alan, that didn't seem like that was the direction you guys wanted to go to. Am I right or am I?
I think that we're pretty much all in agreement on that.
Okay, I just want to make sure I clarified that.
Thank you. So currently, at this time, I don't feel that we are going to make a mandate for town buildings. Doesn't seem like we have everybody interested to do that. And again, if Ellen feels when you come to my counter and you want to talk to me, put a mask on. When Jean says somebody comes to her window, put a mask on. That's up to them. They can certainly do that. That's their own prerogative. At this time, I think that after hearing from Tom and Alan, and Lonnie, did I miss anybody, Missy, as far as this subject?
I know Mike Crowley is on now.
Mike, how much have you caught of this conversation?
Probably the last 5 minutes of it.
Okay.
I was on, and then I was having a video issue and I had to reset. And obviously now I'm here and I can hear everybody.
So I don't know if you caught, how much of this you caught. The suggestion was made by our VNA nurse to close the town hall. Actually, I think she says all public buildings to the public. That does not mean that the employees go home, just simply to the public for 2 weeks until we figure out if this surge that's happening right now because of the holidays will subside. Also, she suggested a mask mandate. And was it town-wide, Missy, or just the, because it can't be a public building, she's suggesting close them.
She's suggesting just to, on both aspects, just the town buildings. The problem with, at least for us, and I did talk to Danielle and Daniel about this today, if for some reason the Board of Health felt that they wanted to put in a town-wide mask mandate, that is very difficult for us with the staffing that we have to do any enforcement with that. So there, I mean, Ann's real recommendation is just regarding the town buildings to being open or being closed to the public, not town-wide businesses or anything like that. Okay?
Right. Thank you. So Mike, after going around and getting talked at in my phone.
Andy, you're echoing, so I don't know what.
Are you hearing the echo too?
Yep.
Let me hang up and call back.
No, I think it's okay now.
Oh, I think it's all right now. It was bad for a second.
Yeah, it was. Okay, thank you. Anyways, Mike, after going through the meeting of all attendees right now, Ellen, Tom, Lonnie, Alan, Missy, Daniel, the general consensus is that there is not a need at this time. It's not unanimous, but there's not a need at this time to close the town hall, the town buildings. And again, the mask mandate is a personal preference for anybody concerned. Are you in agreement or disagreement, or do you have any other thoughts to add to that?
Well, my first thought is that I think I agree that closing the town hall, just closing it down, is not acceptable. Also, the problem I see with mandating masks, and I don't think it's appropriate to any kind of a town-wide mandate for masks. But again, the issue with mandating anything inside the public building is enforcement. How do you make a resident walking in who doesn't want to wear a mask wear a mask? But at the same time, I also I have a scientific job and a background in engineering, and I can tell you that Lonnie's not wrong that if you don't wear the mask right, it's not as effective. But there's no question that, you know, if we took some of those KN95 masks that we have around town and made them available when people walked in, and they put those on when they walked into the town hall, that would definitely reduce the amount of particulate in the air. And I think it would do something to safeguard the employees, which is frankly my concern, is employee safety. And I don't think, I would not be against, you know, for the next 2 weeks doing something like having town hall by appointment only, because that way, if they had an appointment to see, say, Ellen, you know, they came to the door, you know, if she asked them to put on a mask and they won't put on the mask, then she doesn't have to open the door, right? I mean, it's your decision, the Board of Health's decision to do that. But I don't think it's a good idea to make a town-wide mandate. I don't think it's a good idea to close the building. I wouldn't be against having appointment only for the next 2 weeks. And if we did put a mask mandate in the building without doing the appointment piece, I don't know how you enforce it. And I don't think I think it's crazy to tell each individual employee to say, you know, you have to enforce people wearing masks. So if we were going to do a mask mandate, I think it would need to be in conjunction with making the town hall and other town buildings appointment only. You know, the library, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's what what the fire department's done, is they've closed their lobby, right? And the police lobby is already closed. So that people, you know, they go in that vestibule and they can't get any further in. So I don't think that's a problem, but I don't know if I'm talking in circles, if that makes sense or not, but that's my sense of it. That's my thought on it.
Thank you. Just to clarify, Mike, just to clarify, we were not talking about closing the building 100%.
No, I don't think we should.
No, right from the start, we were not talking about closing the buildings where the employees would go home and the doors would be shut and all that. It's just like you said, by appointment only, by the window for the tax collector and like that, like it was done before. But it doesn't seem like that is what everybody wants to do at this time. And as far as the masks, we're going to probably leave it up to each and every individual in the department, if they have somebody coming in by appointment or otherwise, to tell them, if you want to talk to me, you need to wear a mask. Tom Fickner, go ahead.
Well, I think the point I was going to make has been addressed. I would just like to emphasize that from my perspective, I am only not in favor of the Board of Health taking the step to implement a town-wide mandate of any kind. Each of the town buildings operate a little differently. Foot traffic's a little different in each of the environments. And as what's been pointed out earlier with Ellen's conversations or points, and Andrew from the library, and I think that each building should still have the opportunity, if they so decide, that the leadership of that building should be making the decisions as to what they need to do to modify behavior if they have concerns about COVID. Such as Andrew pointed out, he's going to be making some adjustments on his end at the library. And again, what's been mentioned, Mike had mentioned appointments. That's a great way to reduce the foot traffic in general. So I would like to leave it up. My view would be to leave it up to the individual entity within the buildings as to how they operate, what they need to do to feel comfortable. Again, I am all for making the employees feel comfortable in the work they're doing, but the basic concepts of social distancing and, face covering when it's appropriate. The only other concern I would have with regard to buildings, and I'm not aware of any issues, would be with regard to the maintenance element. If there's any issues with ventilation or airflow, if there's no concerns of that nature and those elements operating fine, and then I would stand on what I'm presenting. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Mike, do you have anything else to add to that? It's been very frustrating with this echo. I don't know what's causing that this evening. I'm sorry.
Nope, no, I don't think, I don't have anything else to add than what I've already said.
Thank you. So currently, Daniel, do you have anything else to add for us, please?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time. Alan, do you have anything to add for this conversation?
The only thing I'll say is to Daniel, I appreciate you bringing up the issue of a town department only having 1 or 2 employees. If they were to go down, we would lose the function of that department. And as far as, masks, I feel they're a small inconvenience. And I personally was never talking about a mandate, but a guideline, a suggestion. But if we're going to go the route where the town departments can decide whether they want to have a mask requirement or not, I'll back that. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ellen, your voice has changed. Okay. She's gone anyways. All right. So at this time, I don't really feel that there's any action going to be taken in this matter. Is that correct?
Andy, Ellen's back.
Yes, she is. You there, Ellen?
Yep, I'm here. I walked away for a few minutes.
Okay. I just wanted to see if you had any other thoughts on this matter, because you're right in the nucleus of this.
I don't really. In my own office, we're going to be wearing our masks, Peg and I, and we have a sliding window. I think if everybody's left to their own devices as far as whether they want masks, that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that you feel safe and everything is good.
Andy, can I ask, can we at least put masks at the entrances if they're not there already? Because I know Kim told me today that we have a significant stockpile of them, and it might be helpful to have them there, because I've had so many times when I get to the door of a building and it says I have to have a mask on to walk in, and I have to walk back to my vehicle to find one.
You and me both.
Yeah.
Ellen, are you privy to the stockpile of masks?
I am not privy to the stockpile, but I do have some. I had somebody ask me for one when he came in the other day, and I have a couple packages, and I'm glad to give them out. If somebody wants to, I don't see anybody that goes upstairs. I only see the people that come in my door.
Do we have that availability?
I'm not aware of any stockpile of masks.
Good. Okay.
Well,
all right. Well,
I'll follow up with Kim, or maybe Lonnie. We'll follow up with her, and I just think they should be distributed to the departments so that, if people want them and they want to make them available, then at least they can,
Most every building I go in nowadays has some kind of a small stand with availability of new fresh masks and hand sanitizer if anybody wants it. And I do agree that that's something we should have.
I have plenty of hand sanitizer.
Let's face it, if the governor has put a recommendation in, I don't think you would ever do something like that, because obviously there's a lot of blowback to doing that. So I think it's a good idea to suggest it.
Thank you. Any further comments from anybody? We thank each and every one for their time, and everyone be safe. That's it on this matter. Thank you. Missy, with second agenda piece, we have 72 Washington Street.
Yeah, let me just double check that because Margaret is here. And I don't know if she's the engineer for both of those plans or just 132 Uxbridge Road. If she's just here for 32 Uxbridge Road, then I would suggest jumping over to that so Margaret can go ahead with her evening.
Fine.
Fine. All right, Margaret, you're on.
You all set? Okay. I'm here representing Frank Chesky, 132 Uxbridge Road in Mendon. Typical septic repair. It's a small lot. He's pretty much almost across from the Royal Fireside. So just a septic repair. I'm trying to fit a septic on the same lot as a well. So he doesn't have quite enough room to be able to meet the offsets. So I'm asking for a waiver to the well instead of 100 feet, being 88 feet from the proposed well, and the back property line 5 feet instead of 10 feet.
And if I'm correct, Frank owns the lot on the backside also, correct?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Is that accessible? Is that a buildable lot at some later date?
Well, it's a separate lot. I don't know what his plans are for that lot. I don't know if it'd be a buildable lot for a house, but he does have a garage on there, whether he sells that separately or not. The only access he has would be through his front parcel, so he'd have to get an easement.
Yeah, that's what I thought. What I was wondering was, does he currently have access to Route 16 for a driveway at a later date for that back lot? But I don't believe he does. I believe it's landlocked, like you said. It would
Correct.
be through his lot.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So currently we're looking for two reductions in distances, back lot to the well and well to SAS.
Correct.
And Missy, what was Tom Ryder's recommendation, please?
Tom approved it. He agreed with it.
Then I do too then. Tom Fickner?
Yes, I'm fine. If the recommendations from our engineer support, I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan?
I'm on board.
Thank you very much. All in
Okay.
favor? Oh,
I
a
need
motion?
yes.
Alan?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion to accept Tom Ryder's recommendations for reduction distance to well and reduction distance to back property line for 132 Uxbridge Road septic repair.
I second.
Thank you. Thank you. Here you go, Margaret. Okay.
Thank you, board. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you,
evening.
You too.
Be safe. Bye-bye. So 72 Washington Street, Missy.
72 Washington Street. There's no engineer on here for that. So I will quickly read Tom Ryder's approval. The applicant is requesting a local upgrade approval for the proposed septic system at the repair for the above referenced property, which is 72 Washington Street. Title V requires that soil testing and percolation testing be conducted in the proposed soil absorption system area. The soil sieve analysis is allowed for repairs as a local upgrade as long as at least one deep hole has been conducted in the area. The sieve analysis confirms loamy sand conditions in the soil absorption area. The engineer has designed the system according to DEP's policy. As this is a repair and the site limitations create constraints to upgrades to Title V new construction standards, I am recommending the approval of the local Title V local upgrades as with a deed notice per the AI technology approval letter that the site utilizes alternative systems.
Very good. Thank you. Tom, do you have any thoughts on this? Tom Fickner?
I would support the recommendation put forth by engineer.
Thank
Jim?
you. Alan?
I'm on board.
Thank you. Motion, please.
Motion to accept the recommendation for 72 Washington Street with regard to septic repair as outlined by Town Engineer Tom Ryder.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Hold on, I gotta pull the agenda up. I think the next thing was to discuss,
Policy and procedure.
yes, for expired septic plans. Andy?
So I filled you both in about the one in particular that we had going on. That was on Bates Street. The original proposed design plan by Shea Engineering was submitted on February 14th. Almost 4 years ago. This February would be 4 years ago. Typically, a septic system design that is approved, an approved plan, is good for 3 years. If sometime before the end of that 3-year period, they know they're not going to get to it for whatever reason, they can apply for a 1-year extension. That was not done. Here we are currently close, a month away, 5 weeks away from 4 years, which is way outside of the 3-year period. The problem that was arose was at that time the fee was submitted for, along with the application, for approval, for inspections, for everything that needs to be done within our fee structure. Since then, they have stepped up to the plate. This one is a non-issue. They have stepped up to the plate. Somebody paid the additional $450. The exact same plan can be resubmitted. And then it goes through approval plan. So Tom approved it. The fee was paid. It's back in play. It's like it never was an issue. But what we should discuss is if this ever arises again, how would we handle this? We should have a policy in place, because one of the issues that was brought to my attention by Alan when I had the conversation with him was that money did not get spent, so it got sucked into the general fund and it was dispersed elsewhere in the town government. So if in fact we sent it out for approval again after, because that Title V has that regulation in there, so we can't just automatically say, oh yes, go ahead, shame on you, go do it. It has to go through the process. So it has to go to our engineer, whether it's Tom Ryder or somebody else. He needs to be paid for doing that job. So there's an additional charge. When the plan comes back and it's given to an installer, and an installer goes and starts putting the septic system in, the inspections need to be done and the inspectors need to be paid. So to try and get the money out of the general fund after 4 years is going to be a very tough thing to do. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be a very tough thing to do. And as much as I don't want to see anybody suffer, I certainly don't want to see the town suffer either, or the Board of Health, or whoever is considered. So we should probably put in place some kind of a policy in this regard. And I'd be interested in hearing from both of you, how do you feel about this? What are your thoughts in case this situation ever arises again for us or for future board members to help protect them? Because Misty will still be here. Tom Fickner?
We don't by chance still have Mike Morelli on the call, do we?
We do not. Everybody's
Ah.
gone. It's just the four of us.
That's unfortunate, because,
Do you want me to text him?
well, if you could, it would be great.
That would be that's a good point, Tom. Let me see if I can catch him.
You know where I was going, Andy. Very good.
Yeah, I do. I don't have his number. I thought I did. Bummer. Yeah, he was on the FinCom for a lot of years.
Right, and so
Yep.
the point being is that, as I understand it, although we're currently in limbo with it, there has been an approval for us to have a revolving account when it comes to engineering. I think what was left open was the amount of money. I think that was ever quote unquote specifically confirmed or voted on by the town at a town meeting. But my understanding, at least from what we've been told, is that we have a revolving account just for this type of work. Engineering fees, collecting money for engineering costs and things of that nature. But, that aside, I mean, I think that alone will help. Once we get that solidified and get it confirmed as the amount of money, I think that alone will help this type of situation that could crop up where we would not lose that money to the general fund. I wouldn't want to, I understand the point about the money having gone from our budget into the general fund, but somewhere along the line, somebody benefited, in the town. Some need was met, by that money, and I wouldn't necessarily want to penalize just based on a technicality, somebody who, for whatever reason, had missed the quote unquote time frame and have them pay an additional amount of money. I think the way our budget's structured, I'm quite sure that we would not have had any issue in having that those costs presented by our engineer paid, to be honest with you. But I think the key element here is we should try to get an answer to this revolving account situation as far as our board's concerned and kind of put it to bed. Mr. Chairman.
Tom, just so you know, I text Lonnie and asked Lonnie to ask Mike if he can join us. He's trying to get a hold of him right now. That's a very good point because he would certainly be advantageous to us to have his knowledge. That's a real good point. That would certainly circumvent any issue. I think it would anyways. I don't know how long monies can stay in a revolving account without being used before they say it's dormant and something needs to be done with it. I don't know if that's an issue because that happens in banking.
Yeah, I would believe, and I get, Mike or somebody from FinCom could best answer it, but my understanding would be that the account, there is no restriction that I'm aware of on revolving accounts. It just allows for that particular department to maintain a little bit of better financial control. And I think I see Mike coming on board now.
Are you here with us, Mike?
I am.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much for coming back, Mike.
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that.
I will expedite this as fast as I can so that you can come up to speed. Currently, in the state of Massachusetts with Title V, when someone designs a septic system plan for a new construction or a repair, it doesn't matter. When that plan is submitted to the Board of Health, a check is given with the application to the Board of Health. In this case, it was $450. The plan was submitted to the engineer. It was approved. It was sent back. You have 3 years from the date of approval to do something with that approved plan. We had an issue very recently within the past 2 weeks that before the end of the 3 years, if you apply for a 1 year extension, you can do that and you'll get 4 years basically on the whole picture. So recently, someone came forward, wanted to work on the system. It turns out that they never did apply for that extension. So they've gone past the end of the 3 years. First of all, February 14th would be the end of the 4th year. So that being said, the $450 that they paid never got used for any of the inspections. It was absorbed by the general fund. Now, they can resubmit the plan. They did that. The question was, do they need to repay the fees? This is where you come in. If we did not penalize them by charging them the fee for the reapplication, and we just said, you've already paid once, and this is, how do we, and to get the money back out of general fund to pay the inspectors that do the inspections on the septic system. So this is where I'm going to segue to Tom Fickner so that he can explain to you, because he just did an eloquent job doing this, about the revolving account. Tom, could you take over, please?
Wow, my new tag description for 2022, I'm eloquent. Thank you.
Always that, buddy.
Thank you, Andy. Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Yeah, so in discussing this particular issue that Andy outlined, what I brought up was the element of revolving account. It had been our understanding that some time back, a revolving account was approved for the Board of Health with regard to the engineering, I believe, aspect of the funds, such that.
That's my memory.
Okay. And I think the one element of that was that there just hadn't been an amount approved at a town meeting that determined what could be held in that account. So the point that I was making was that if indeed we do have this revolving account, situations like this wouldn't necessarily be a concern to try to recoup money, say from the general fund again, because we would have funds that we would hold in our revolving account that would cover situations like this from an engineering, invoicing perspective, from a contractor perspective. So what I didn't know was if you might recall where the revolving account for Board of Health stood with regard to this aspect.
Well, it only has to be established once. And my belief was that we did establish that revolving fund. What I don't think was ever done was to set a limit. And I think you have to have both elements of it being established and having a limit on it before you can start putting money into it. But what you are getting at, which is correct, is rather than that money every year going into the general fund, then what happens is it stays in that account. And the reason for the limit, say you put a $10,000 limit on it, anytime at the end of the fiscal year you get over $10,000, then that additional money would go into the general fund. But you've always got that cushion of that limit of $10,000 that's there. And the whole idea, right, is so that you have enough money in there so that the amount that you're collecting for fees matches what you're paying out to engineers for doing what they have to do. That was the whole point of it. And of course, what it does is it makes it much easier for us to fine tune that so that, we're not using money for the wrong thing. I mean, if it's a fee, the fee should be used to cover the cost of whatever that function is, which is why this revolving account, I think that this would be appropriate. You can't, and I think you're making the right decision about, giving somebody, the ability to say you've already paid it once, especially where there's no additional cost, right? I mean, if you spent money for engineering costs already, and then, they paid a fee already, well, then you'd need to charge them again, right, to cover for the next fee. But if you've never spent any money having somebody inspect it, or if they never have to inspect it again, well, then why would you charge them?
Right, it wouldn't be a fair thing to do.
Right.
Yep. Okay. So what would be your take then on what would need to happen to establish this second piece where we would have to set a limit or have a limit approved by the townspeople?
Well, it's certainly the right time of year to be talking about it. We have a joint FinCom select board meeting, I think a week from tonight. We're going to start talking about the budgeting process. There are, and we could talk about other accompanying issues, but we would obviously take care of this at this, at the annual meeting in May. It's the next opportunity we'd have to do it, because that limit has to be voted on at town meeting by the voters. So probably the most efficient way would be to have, have your admin, have Missy send an email to the, the town administrator, just talking about the board's wish to move forward with establishing this revolving account and to begin using it. So the money goes and then stays and is used for what it's intended. Does that make sense?
It does. Excellent. Thank you.
I have a question.
Missy?
So these plans are good for 3 years. So monies that were collected in FY 18, 19, 20. What happens? Where's the seed money to start paying for those inspections out of a revolving account if I don't have the money available to pay the bills?
Well, what we could do, I believe, is we would establish the account, and we could budget money into that account for that purpose. I mean, and the way you would do it, I think, Missy, is you could probably, go back, say 12 months, and see how much you've collected.
I should be able to do that with KVS, right?
What's that?
KVS should be able to tell me that, right?
It should, and it wouldn't surprise me. I can tell you that our current treasurer slash finance director is pretty amazing with spreadsheets and Excel, and has already set up a lot of an awful lot of spreadsheets to give her a lot of information about money going in and out. And of course, we're only going to be using KVS this one more budget season, and then we're switching to a whole new system. But you should be able to find out from the treasurer collector's office how much you've collected for that purpose, if you don't have some other documentation that could help you figure it out. But then all we would do is, at the end of the fiscal year, we would move that money into the general fund, which would end up being calculated into free cash. And, there would be a way at town meeting to move so much out of free cash, to establish that revolving a fund amount for that purpose. And we'd probably have a separate article. It would be very easy to explain to everybody that, look, this is money we already collected. People have applied for these, for these plans. And now we just have to have the engineer, go on site to inspect them. And, we haven't paid that out yet. So we need the money so we can pay the engineers to inspect it. Should be a pretty easy thing to explain. But yeah, I would say you could talk to the treasurer collector's office, and they should be able to tell you.
So then my question to the board would be, you have spent money. You have spent money and paid Tom to review the plans. So do I need to? Money has been spent, though, on that property.
You broke up, I think, on that audio transmission.
If I can just
use part of the fee to pay the engineer, our Tom Ryder, to review those plans. So money has been spent. So now we're going to pay Tom twice to review those plans and then do the inspections.
If I may, Mike?
Sure.
I believe what Missy's trying to get across is when the $450 is paid with the application, out of that, a portion of that money pays for the function of the engineer to review the plan that the design engineers have made and say, yes, this is a good plan, it works. That's one part of his fee. As the installer goes to install the system, there's 3 different inspections at that point. Each and every one is a different amount for those inspections. So part of those monies has been spent. And to try and separate that, that gets very involved. Is that what you were trying to convey, Missy?
Kind of.
All I was getting at, Andy, was that it seems to make sense if people paid, an application fee, which I'm assuming that fee covers all the costs associated with it. It certainly should, right?
It
If
does.
it doesn't, probably should adjust the fee. That's just my thought. But
it does.
If it covers it and, you want to give somebody a break, I have no problem giving people breaks, but at the same time, if they paid a fee for certain things to take place, and now, they're going to move forward, and the original fee they paid, isn't going to cover all of the costs associated with that. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, you certainly can't do that too much before suddenly, now taxpayers are paying for people's, other costs, which is of course what the whole revolving account was supposed to do, right?
Right.
Gives you a good handle on knowing, because nothing's ever perfect, right? But, is whatever fee you're charging enough? Well, a revolving account is a really good way to give you a handle on it. I mean, making sure you have enough to cover all your costs. But I don't know. But the other thing I'm thinking is I don't think you have the ability to, to kind of prorate a fee or maybe you do. I don't know. But that would seem to be the fairest thing. If he paid in $450 and the total cost of everything for this system, because it's taken so long, now it's going to be $600. Can you charge the other $150? I don't have any idea. But Missy makes a good point.
She always does. All right. Well, Mike, you've been a wealth of knowledge, and I thank you very much for coming back to our
You're
meeting. I have one more question. Would you mind terribly if we had your phone number to reach out to you?
Of course not.
Ready to write.
508-498-7733.
Thank you. Do you have all of our numbers? And I believe you've got mine.
Yeah, I'm, let's see, I think Alan, are you phoned in right now?
Yes, I am.
Yep.
So is that your 774 number I'm looking at?
Could be.
Okay. So I think, Tom, let me just walk through here and make sure that I have everybody. Just bear with me here a minute.
Sure.
So Andy, you're 508-400-8034?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Alan, you're 774-573-1675?
Yes.
All right, and then Tom.
Yes, sir.
You're logged in the same way I am, so I can't see your number.
Yeah, I could give it to you.
The right place. All right, what's your cell, Tom?
Okay, so my cell is 774-573-9526.
All right.
Awesome.
Oh, you know what? I did have you in here. I just had your name misspelled.
Maybe you had me under Mr. Eloquent.
Yeah, cross-reference under silver tongue devil, right? All right, guys. Hey, Happy New Year. Missy,
Thank
Happy
you
New
very
Year
much.
to you too.
Mike.
All
Thank
right,
you very
take
much.
it easy.
Appreciate
I
it.
just
Yeah, you're welcome.
Before you leave, Mike, I just want to let you know that I'm looking at the warrant from FY 2022. In
Yeah,
the book, Title V, there was a limit spending of $25,000.
okay. So
So it's good.
you do have, well, so if you do have a limit, then you know what I would do tomorrow, Missy, is reach out to Jody
Mhm.
and find out if we already have done everything we need to do to just start using that account. And she may be able to transfer money you know, into that revolving account now.
Okay.
So just ask. I mean,
Sure.
that's the path of least resistance, right? If there's a limit already set and it was established, then let's see if we can just legally start using it. And then this problem goes away. So now you know exactly what you have, and you know, as long as the Gazint and the Gazauto matches, right? Which is what we're trying to do.
Right. Like I said, my only concern is when you have plans that were done 3 years ago, the money's not available for those inspections.
Yeah, you know, this might be an opportunity to, if you can, you might want to make up a policy that, you know, somehow does deal with this in the future. So that way, when it happens, rather than wasting time discussing it, you already have a policy laid out that says, you know, when we have somebody who's reached that limit and they come back again, and we know how much they've already spent, we know how much we need to recoup, you know, whatever the cost was, you know, then that covers that issue, because that is definitely an issue, right?
Alan Greenberg, do you have any more questions or comments for Mike Foley?
No, I'm just along for the ride on this one. We just need to make sure that our policy that we have is the one we want to keep.
Okay, we've got some work to do.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mike.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Thank you, Mike. You too.
All right, bye.
That was a great point, Tom, and I'm glad you started segueing to that, and it worked out well that we got him to come back, because he spent a lot of years on FinCom, and that was a big help.
Sure. My thanks to Missy. Missy, thank you for finding that little piece there on the amount. That actually helped seal the deal.
I'm just curious, because I've asked the town accountant for help with this whole thing and I get nowhere. So maybe Jody will be better at giving me the answers to the questions that I have, because I have kept a spreadsheet on my own since July 1 of all of the addresses and the amounts they paid. Was it a perk test, a septic plan, and the date they expire, and all that other fun stuff, and tallying all that. But you don't have enough money really to pay Tom Ryder the last bill. So I paid it the old way so I could get Tom paid. So because like I said, the town accountant was absolutely no help. I wanted someone to show me how these work. How do you run these? I've never done one before, and I really got no help. So maybe Jody is the avenue to go.
It's a new year.
So Missy, with that spreadsheet that you've been keeping on your own, have you acknowledged how many of those have been completed and are checked off?
No, because they've only been submitted. Like one of them was 132 Uxbridge Road. Another one was 149 Uxbridge Road. That hasn't been installed. That was only a perk test. We haven't gotten the plans yet. So
okay. As long as I'm sure you've got a handle on it. I have no doubt in my mind. Just another quick question for you, Missy. when Mike said go to Jody and with the figure or with the spreadsheet and try and get the money. If that does not work, you know what to do next. I kind of follow what you guys were talking about as far as putting together a something for the warrant for free cash transfer.
I know nothing about that stuff, so I actually paid Tom out of the budget because it was over $5,000. The original budget that you have. So tomorrow I'll go talk to Jody and say, listen, what do we do?
Yeah.
The other thing
Well,
thing I talked to Jody about was the whole screw up with the V&A bill. I sent her off all of the emails and the vouchers that I sent, so I got to follow her up with that too.
Good, cool. So if by
Missy?
chance, if 1 second, Alan, please. If you and Jody don't come up with the answers, I hope you were writing. You do have Mike's phone number, right?
Nope.
You do? I'll text it to you right now. Go ahead, Alan.
Missy, I from the conversation, it sounds like the seed money has to be put into that revolving account.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
And if what's going to happen is, because these septic plans are good for 3 with an extension 4 years, you might have to go back a period of 4 years, see how much money was collected in each of those 4 years, and maybe take an average. And that might be what the suggested seed money is. And it might take 1 or 2 fiscal years of the money that we collect getting put into that revolving account up to a maximum balance of $25,000 for this to all even out. I don't think it's going to be instantaneous.
That is the seed
I don't
money.
think it's.
I can already tell
Yeah,
you.
I don't think.
You need $25,000 in seed money for that. Because
Okay.
that's what you pay. Yeah, when I've done your bills and everything, your budget is
Yeah.
20,000. There's times you've gone over it, and there's times you've gone right at the 20,000. So at a minimum for seed money, you would need 20,000 to make sure that you had all the money, or maybe 10,000 because you're hoping you're going to collect the rest of it. But when
Okay.
you've got
Well,
subdivisions,
again, like I said, I don't think it's going to be an exact science year 1 with the in and the out, because we're talking about something that has a 4-year maximum life expectancy.
right. Now, so my question,
As far as septic systems are concerned,
Right.
other fees that we collect that are related to engineering, they might come in January and they might be expended in March.
correct.
Those are going to balance, the ins and outs are going to balance real quick. It's the septic designs where they have such a long lifespan that it's going to take a while for it to even out.
Right.
Back to you.
So my question to you guys, I guess, is what I need you guys, like Mike had said, you need to come up with a policy. So if someone comes up again this year, next year, 5 years, and they've gone a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years of an expired septic plan, what is your policy going to be? What do you want me to do?
Well, currently, if I may speak, you
Absolutely.
have 3 years, and before the 3 years expires, you have the ability to pay, I believe it's $100 and a 1-year extension, and that's Title V
Correct.
policy. So we have the same policy as Title V.
Right.
So that's the way it would be unless we do something different than follow Title V policy.
Right. So right now you're right. You're correct as far as your septic plans are good for 3 years. When you come to the end, you've got, I'm not going to be able to do it. You did one for a couple of properties this year, needed a 1-year extension. You granted it. They paid the $100. Boom. So once that 4th year ends, or if that third year ends and they don't request an extension, in years past, it would be you have to resubmit because the plans no longer are valid. Even though you can submit the same exact plans, same exact application, but it has to go through the review process again to make sure from the time it was originally approved till now, no changes have been made to Title V. And then you would charge the $450. Now we got the revolving account. That's what I need to know what you guys want me to do. Tom, you have your hand up.
Hey, yeah, you mentioned something I didn't realize that we had in play with regard to the extension. I thought that the extension was more a paperwork issue. I didn't realize that we were collecting an additional $100 for the extension.
Yeah, that's been like that ever since I've started here. There's always the $100 extension fee that they had to file to get the
What
one.
is that supposed to be covering if no one's done anything yet? I mean, what is that extra 100? So technically somebody could be paying $550 to do a septic for their fees versus somebody who paid $450 just because they extended it 1 year.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd have to talk to a previous board member. You talk to Mike Tatro. He was on the. Yep.
If someone submits for that, applies for that additional year, does anything have to go to Tom Ryder?
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's got to be. What is the work done on your end of it, as far as an application and along with the lines of what Tom was asking? What is done physically? Do you have paperwork to do, refiling? Does the state get notified? Does anybody get notified?
Nope, it's just a matter of me having a letter and then me placing it on the agenda for you to review.
Interesting.
AJ,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to assume that maybe in previous boards, they have the $100 fee to cover any additional expenditures for that plan. In a 4-year period, the fees for engineers, et cetera, you have to account for the increase.
That would make sense, Alan, but I'm wondering, do we have anything on our application file, paper, whatever, that may state that this fee may be increased if our fees go up? You know, something along that terminology. If our engineers, because everything's going out of sight right now. If our engineer says, actually, we're dealing with Steve Donatelli now, and he's more money than Lenny was. So
correct.
In the time that somebody dropped off a check and an application with a design plan, now say they did it last year or the year before when Lenny was still here. Now we've got somebody whose their fee is more, so that somehow we have to cover that. Do we have any terminology on that paperwork about that, Missy?
No, because you use the state of Massachusetts form, and Tom has his hand up.
Speak.
Oh, sorry, I was formulating a thought. I forgot to put my hand down from the last question, but since you came to me, I just really I get the discussion with regard to, cost increases and so forth. And I would think if that's the case, if we're concerned about increases in costs, that should actually have us as a board having a discussion about adjusting the initial application fees accordingly. But this, to me, this added $100 just simply from the standpoint of somebody's applying for an extension. If there's no initial really cost impact to anyone, I was kind of surprised we had it. And you mentioned it goes back to Mike Tatro. That was many, many moons ago. So, because I've been on the board for 12 years almost. So I would be in favor potentially of losing that, to be honest with you, that piece of it, that money piece, and have it be a situation more of a case where we're looking at the reason, what is your reason, Mr. and Mrs. Resident, for the delay? You know, that sort of thing. If technically nothing has to change, if the plans don't have to be reviewed, if from a Title V perspective, the plans are still deemed to be valid, it just seems like we're hitting them up that extra $100 really for no fair reason. Back to you.
There goes your Christmas bonus, Missy.
What bonus?
All
Look
right.
what happens when I make an assumption.
All right, so we do have some thoughts to do on that, discussion on that. It's not going to be decided overnight, but again, chew on that and let's come up with our best combined effort.
Okay, so AJ, if I
Yes,
may, so we're going to keep the current policy that we have. You have 3 years, or you file for a 1-year extension before the 3 years is up. That is our policy. We're going to keep that for now.
Yeah, that's Title V, and that's
Yeah.
that's going to be done. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
And if they don't get it done, they start over at this point.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, what do you want to do about that $100 fee? I mean, do we talk about it? Do we act on it? Missy, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, you know, like I said, there seems to be no additional real cost being incurred for that additional $100, as long as the initial $450 covers the costs that go into the plan. You know, I guess along with what Alan had said with regard to our current policy, so does that mean that with regard to the situation that potentially could have been presented to us tonight, that we would have automatically had to have said that resident would have had to have paid the $450 if they hadn't volunteered it? Or was it just the discretion of the board to determine whether or not any fees would have to apply if they came in late?
I believe it was left the way it was left until we got the until Missy called me and said somebody paid it and they're all set. If push came to shove, it was going to be a topic for discussion this evening, and we had to come up with some kind of reasonable plan and figure out, would they have to pay or would they be okay? So we've skated on that one, but it's certainly something that opens our eyes and needs attention.
I
Okay.
just really need a policy from you guys saying, yes, Title V says the plan's good for 3 years. Yes, you get the 1-year extension. After one of those are done, the plan is voided just by Title V. They have to reapply anyways. My question is the fee. It's the money aspect that I need to know, because once the plan has been expired, Title V takes care of, yeah, they've got to resubmit everything all over again. And it can be the same exact plan, the same exact application, but it's deemed expired by Title V. So that's what I need to know from you guys, that if a plan expires, whether it's after the extension or after the 3 years, what do you want me to do? That's what I need from you guys. Is there a fee or isn't there a fee? Am I supposed to go back?
In my opinion on this, I feel as long as it's on our application that all those words you just said is stated, or somehow it's stated to the person that's applying and dropping off the paperwork and approve my plan, here's my check. Somehow, if they have acknowledgement that this is the case, you either act on it within 3 years or before the end of 3 years, come back and see us. And you can get an additional year. As long as that they acknowledge that, I think they should pay over again. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
And
That's my own
again,
opinion.
I will follow whatever the board directs, but that's what I need, that's what we need clarification on. If you want it on your application, then you're going to have to create, because right now we use the state form. The state form does not talk about expiration dates or payments or anything like that. It's used across the state of Massachusetts. So then you would
Can
have
you-
to
can
have
we add to the state form?
well, that's the thing. You'll have to add it, but then the engineer is going to have to make sure that that is the application that they submit to you. They can't just use the state form anymore. They will have to use your amended form.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. That's on the design engineer that's submitting the plan.
Right. Tom?
So I would kind of lean toward not necessarily charging them the full boat all over again. I get the concept that from a Title V perspective, the physical aspect of the plans all have to start over again. And technically then we know that at minimum, there'd be an expenditure from Tom's perspective, because he'll have to review them again, just because the whole process had to start over because we're bound by Title V. So in a way, I think that kind of helps us. I just don't think necessarily that it'd be fair to the resident to charge them full boat again, if really the only added incurrence that we know would happen would be a second review by Tom, and then everything else would simply just happen anyway and would theoretically be covered under the original 450 for all the additional inspection components. Thoughts?
Tom?
Alan?
Yes.
Yes. My only concern with that is, and I see what you're saying, that the 3 inspections were never done. The engineer was never paid to do the inspections. So the only money expended was on the engineer to do the plan approval. With a $25,000 cap on our revolving account, and Missy telling me that we're already spending 20 or 25,000 annually, if they've already taken 3 years and they've gone for a 1-year extension and expended that time period, any extra money that goes above that 25,000 is still going to get sucked up into the general fund. And I don't know how often the town will allow us to increase that 25,000, because that $25,000 cap right now is going to be okay. The money should, in a year or two, should come in and go out, and it should balance pretty close. But year 3, 4, 5, that $25,000 cap is, we're going to have to get them to raise it, because what we're going to spend annually is going to go up. And if they don't raise that, then we're going to come up short. The in and the out aren't going to balance.
Well, I would actually say that based on what Missy's indicating with what our costs are now, that we now actually should be requesting an increase to that limit to maybe another 10,000, to be honest with you. I wouldn't want to wait, because costs have, increased across the board for pretty much everything. And if we're that close now, I don't want to wait to potentially hit the ceiling. You'd always want to know you have a little bit of a cushion. So to be honest with you, I think we should be having discussions, as Mike indicated. Now's the time. Let's have a discussion and a presentation about this whole revolving account, and presenting the concept that, we're very grateful that we had a limit, a revolving account established for us, and that there was a X amount of dollars that were established for the limit. But what we're experiencing right now, we feel that that limit is not enough, and that we would like to respectfully request an increase of that, and we should be able to justify why.
I agree. I didn't know if we were in the position to go down that road. I'm sure the reason a limit is put on a revolving account is so that we can't just collect a bank of money and just have it sit there, which would defeat the reason to have a revolving account so that the ins and the outs balance. So I agree. And the only reason I would want to increase that amount was so that we can hold on to the monies collected so that we have the ability to pay it out, not necessarily so that we have a cushion. It's just a matter of retaining the money that we collect. Maybe that 25,000 is too restrictive, if I understand you correctly, and I follow along with that. Thank you, Tom.
Sure. Yeah. When I use the word cushion, I don't mean just to kind of keep extra. I mean, like you said, it would be to cover the ins and the outs. But you typically, from an accounting perspective, I would probably want us to know that we're always going to have a little something left in that account annually, so that we wouldn't have to get to the point of hitting the ceiling and then having to go to the town to seek the increase. It just seems to me that if we know where we're at now and we know what the expenditures are on an annual basis, and if the feeling is that we're at the ceiling now, I don't think it could hurt to ask or put forth a presentation to request an increase based on sound evidence of what has been expended in last 2-3 years.
Actually, that ceiling, that limit, that 25,000, doesn't necessarily mean that 25,000 is in the account. It just gives us the ability to have that amount of money maximum in the account. Just because we have a $25,000 cap on it, we may only have 22,000 in there, but we have the room to accumulate 3,000 more before that money goes into another account. So that moving that cap up to, let's say, 30,000 doesn't mean there's another 5,000 in there. The money will not physically necessarily be in the account. It just gives us the ability to collect and hold on to a little bit more money before it gets taken away and, used for something else.
Well, based on what Mike had indicated, because the account has already been established with an established max of 25,000, we'd be talking about moving monies from a general perspective within our budget specifically into this account. So I took that conversation as being that we can move 25 grand into this separate account right off the bat, so long as there's no issues. And it's just getting reallocated a little bit differently under our budget. It's still part of our budget. It's just being reallocated differently.
Yeah, but we have to physically have that money to move it.
No, it's part of from a budgetary perspective. So from a budgetary perspective, that's where the money would be aligned to that account. Yes, we're gonna. It's
okay.
Yes, I get the fact that we're gonna be. So any monies that are part of our budget, they're gonna have to get moved and aligned into that account. So if I had a bank book on day one, it's gonna read balance 25,000. And then I can add potentially, monies that come in then could move forward and be added to that. But we also know we're going to have payouts as well. So that's the way I see it. I might be off, but.
Yeah, I understand it a little differently. I mean, unless we have in our budget and we physically have the money, I don't know how the money can be moved into that account without it physically being there. And the way I understood it was, just because there's a $25,000 cap doesn't mean that the town is going to allow us the seed money of that amount. They might only allow us 5. They might only allow us 10. That's why I believe it's going to take a budget year or two for things to actually, the ins and outs to balance. But, you know, we both heard the same thing and maybe interpreted it differently. Thank you.
At least 2 years and possibly much more than that to get the value in our possession that is truly ours. We're going to be working at a deficit, and that's a concern until the waters equal out. How are we going to get this money if they've only given us $5,000 or $8,000 seed money, and we have to pay Tom Ryder $5,000 because he's done a bunch of inspections for us? Now we're running low, and we're like, hey, what the fuck?
Right. So I think ultimately, probably all of our answers really hinge upon the discussion that Misty will have to have with Jody on the issue.
Yep.
But I say, you know, I'm of the mindset, go big or go home with regard to what we're looking to do with the account. If there's a general feeling that we're already pretty damn close to the ceiling that's already been allowed, I think now's a perfect time to, if there's an argument to be made and it could be substantiated, make a presentation, since the account's already created, make a presentation that says, you know, hey, we have this revolving account. We know it's been determined 25,000, and therein lies the question, who determined that it was 25,000 and based on what information, who made the call to make it 25,000? But we're finding that based on invoicing and based on what's gone out for costs incurred, that in reality, this cap needs to be higher. That's just my thought.
All righty. Got your hands full, Missy.
Yep.
I'm behind you all the way.
We may find that Missy's conversation with Jody, she may say that there is more money available than we think in our current budget. I don't know. She's the keeper of the money, so it'll be very interesting to see her response to Missy's question. And then on the other hand, we could find that we've, you know, for this fiscal year, we may have already depleted, based on what you said you had to pay Tom, we may have already depleted most of this fiscal year's, you know, monies.
Not to throw a monkey
Thank
wrench in any of this, but then my question, it also comes to, how do you pay Tom for attending your meetings?
I usually give him 2 tickets to the Bruins hockey game every year.
How has he been getting paid?
Well, I mean, it's in the budget, so I just pay it out of the budget, but unless you're going to include his time coming in when there's a local upgrade to a property's 450, that changes things. There is no fee for when he comes and speaks to you guys. So I just don't know how, again, it's a question for Jody, but I'm just throwing it out there. How do you pay Tom when he's come in to help you guys with your private well regulations? He's attending a meeting, it's X amount of dollars. How are you paying him for that if it's not fee-based?
So he's never billed us for those?
He bills us, absolutely.
Oh, okay, so I would look at that as part of an engineering expense. Because this account is for any bill, any invoice that we get that's related to engineering, irrespective of what the task is.
So how do you get paid for that?
How are we going to get income for that, Tom?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So now is an opportunity here with this revolving account to set those standards. Because in my view, any bill that's submitted by an engineer, irrespective of the task, is an expense, is an engineering expense, right?
But if the revolving account was set up strictly to pay for inspection and review of plans, what do you do when you've asked them to attend a meeting?
So do we know definitively that is the specific finite description of the account?
That was my understanding, that the
So-
money, I mean, because otherwise you're not collecting any money for him to attend your meeting. So how do you pay him to attend your meeting?
No, I get your point. Yeah. Well, then I guess therein lies the question, do we keep a separate category and continue doing what you've been doing for those types of invoices that do not go against any income generated through the application fees?
So then you're still going to need a budget item.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
It would have to be like an engineering administrative category.
And I mean, not that I'm not trying to be a
Consulting.
pain, but so what do you do if he comes and attends a meeting to talk about a couple of local upgrades? Do you charge that to the plan, like the meeting amount to the plans? And then if you happen to talk to him about something else, that's fine. I mean, or do you want meetings to be completely separate and it's not associated to a fee regardless if he's coming in to talk to you guys about septic plans?
A very good question. I think these are all great things that, we need to get, solidified. And of course, in things that will have to come up or develop as that conversation starts with Jody. And if you want, Missy, I'd be happy to be a part of that conversation if it helps having a second pair of eyes, so to speak, involved in the discussion process.
Sure, I can let you know when she's available. I'm not available tomorrow afternoon because I have two webinars. One is for the purchasing of the stupid tests, and then another one is with the Blackstone Valley Collaborative interviewing public health nurses and EPIs.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe probably talking about next week sometime,
If it would work better for timing, I can ask her if she's available, if she could give me a couple of days that she's available next week, and I can throw them out to you. And then if you're available, you can pop on in.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Sometimes it's, it's good to have a couple of different, voices. We all have different ideas and things that come through our minds, and we could maybe cover bases.
Right. And sometimes someone thinks of something that somebody else doesn't. So to me, the more you have at the table, so to speak, the better.
Missy,
Yeah.
when does warrant close?
When does what close?
The warrant for the special town meeting?
There isn't a warrant right now. You're going to have what you have is there'll be an availability for the annual in May.
Oh, the annual town meeting. Isn't there a warrant for that?
There is a warrant and it's not open yet.
Okay, good.
They probably won't do that till budgets, which I've already gotten your budget date to meet with Kim and the FinCom and all that anyways. It's in March.
Very good.
So are we done with that subject?
Thank you both.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Exactly.
Thank you, Jesus.
This is not that I want to go completely off topic, but I do want to talk to you guys about what the other thing I have to talk to Jody about. I just need someone to confirm their memory last year that we were told that the bills, the $14,000 that was to be paid to the VNA was going to be available through CARES Act money.
Oh, that's a memory tester. I believe that was, that's correct.
Yeah, I thought Kim said there was plenty of CARES Act money.
And it was
that's
Kim.
how
I was
she
just going to say the
intended to
same
pay
thing. Yep.
Well,
Okay.
guess what?
So,
Aha.
I got an email during Christmas break from Michelle at the VNA wondering when they were going to get paid that $14,000. I said, I submitted the bills. I submitted the bills for a warrant date of June 17th of 2021. They never paid it. I got an oops from Eric saying, our bad, we missed it. We didn't pay it. And there's no CARES Act money left.
Oh, well, Eric doesn't get paid for the next 6 months.
So I'm going to be talking to Jody about that issue too, because I'm not getting any direction. And when I do talk to people, I get poo-pooed and we'll figure it out, we'll figure it out, we'll figure it out. Well, how? What do I tell the V&A how they're going to get paid on something that the town of Mendon agreed to pay?
I'd be
Especially
sending
at a
them
time like
directly to Kim.
Especially at a time like this, we cannot afford to lose VNA. If they decide we haven't been paid, we're not coming to work today.
Well, we're not gonna do anything that's COVID related. Have fun with that. I can't do that. I can't deal with that.
Yep.
So that's another thing I'll be working on. This kind of goes back to COVID, but I have been asked by different people when they can pick up their free testing kit. Mendon was not one of those towns that are the 102 that received it. The only towns that received it in this area were Millville, Uxbridge, and Milford, and it was based on the federal poverty limits. I do know that the Housing Authority in Mendon did receive test kits, but that is because it's run by the town of Milford. I do not want to do the Binax testing. You have to have a medical person vouch to purchase those. I don't have anybody to do that. There's a home test webinar tomorrow at 1 o'clock that I will listen to, but I don't know what the funding source is to buy a bunch of tests to hand out to residents. So I will be working, trying to figure that one out. I believe Kim will also be on that that thing too. But one thing I did find out, it is not these kits are not reimbursed by FEMA. DPH said that yesterday. So
Can you repeat that part about what you said about the Binax testing kit?
Binax, I guess some towns have used those, but you have to have a medical professional sign off. Hold on, I can tell you what.
What kind of qualifications for this medical professional? Nurse?
I think it's a doctor or a nurse or somebody.
Okay.
Some towns do have, I know Douglas has been able to get them, but they have a public health nurse, Agnieszka signed off on it, I'm assuming, because she's a nurse. So it says the order.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So Jean said, yes, they are standing orders that need to be signed by a medical professional. We don't have a medical professional to sign off.
Who said that?
That's what the state requirement is, because I was talking to
Jean Gnatic.
No, Danielle today. And I said, everyone's talking about the home test, the Binax test. What exactly who do you do? What do you do? How do you get them? Blah, blah, blah. So,
excuse me, I believe AJ has an MD at the end of his name. Mad Dog.
Bend over and grab your ankle.
So the requirement to get the Binax is you have to have a medical professional to sign off. I'm assuming a medical professional is like a doctor, like you would to get the vaccine. And that's something that Anne wasn't able to get with the vaccine. But it's the Binax ones is the ones that you have to do all the paperwork and you have to report to the state. So if you do the testing. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Tom.
kind of wonder about that because our company receives Binax test kits
Mm-hmm.
and they're distributed out to the employees for testing.
Mm-hmm. Do you have
so how is that happening then?
Do you have a medical doctor for the company or anything like that?
I highly doubt it. I don't believe so. I mean, these have been received and distributed out to all the facilities around the country. Client that I work for they're a global entity. They exist throughout the world.
So maybe they ordered it through another state requirement. You know what I'm saying? Like if your headquarters is in Texas, well, maybe Texas has a different requirement.
Well, they're actually headquartered in Massachusetts. The headquarters is Boston at State Street Corporation.
So
So I find that kind of interesting.
that's what I'm being told. That's, you have to have a medical professional to sign off.
Okay. It might, maybe because of the size of their organization, they came at it through a different avenue and maybe they had some central approval. because
Very
of the
well.
size. Yeah, okay.
Do they have a medical professional available that you don't know about?
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
they could, from a corporate perspective, they might. I mean, they're not in the, they have no medical element to their business plan.
Yeah.
So they might be working with some other entity that
DNA.
represents them. Well, that'd be interesting. But point being is that when the Binax tests are distributed to us, we're doing them on our own. There's no supervision. There's no, there's no oversight. We're doing them as employees and just following the instructions.
Well, according to what Danielle told me today, they are supposed to be logged and reported to the state of Massachusetts.
Interesting. Okay.
Get on it, Tom. You'll be fired by tomorrow.
I don't need to. I've already got a bunch of cans of worms opened up here. I don't want to open anymore.
No doubt. All righty. You good, Missy?
To be quite honest, I'm tired and I really don't want to talk about well regulations or dumpsters right now. That's the only other two things that I keep reoccurring on your agenda so you don't forget.
I'll second that motion.
We're close on the dumpster regulations. We should keep forging forward at a later date. I know COVID has taken a lot this evening, and I agree with you, and I agree with Alan, and Tom's easy. He'll agree with us.
Absolutely. I'm in agreement.
Do you have a motion, please? Go ahead, Missy.
I just need you to set your next meeting date. Looking at the calendar, it looks like it would be Wednesday, January 19th.
Works for me.
I'm in.
As I've always told you, tell me when the next meeting is.
All right, January 19th at 6 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
There you go, Missy.
All righty, thank you guys.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
all.
Good night.
Good night.